Welcome to the RtI2 training for intervention lessons in kindergarten through 2nd grade. At this point, you've probably administered the universal screener to all your learners, you've recorded their scores on the intervention tracking sheet, and you've identified learners who are at risk. If you still have questions about any of those points, you can go back and watch the universal screener trainings, and they should still be available to you in Schoology. So once you've done these things, you may be asking, now what do I do with this information and how do I help my learners who may be needing to be monitored further or may already be on a Tier 2 or Tier 3 level. If you will remember, in the Coppell Intervention Services public folder, there was a flow chart to the whole overview of the RtI2 process. You can access that in the Coppell ISD folder. Let me pull mine up by going to RtI2, Math, K through 2 Math, and then it was your first document here. I already have it downloaded so that we can pull it up and zoom in, but this gives you an overview of the whole process. So you've already completed the universal screener, which is this first blue box, and you're looking to see if that data helped you identify a learner as at risk. And if so, then you are providing high quality instruction in small groups and monitoring their progress. You are also collecting 4 data points that demonstrate an area of deficit. So when you're collecting these 4 data points, try to collect them from a wide variety of sources so that you are giving the learner an opportunity to show strengths in that area. So it may be something like a classroom assessment, or it may be classroom observation, something a little bit more informal. But make sure you're looking at that area of deficit in that numeracy skills, and that you're gathering quality pieces of information to bring as data to demonstrate a deficit in that area. After your RTI committee meets and decides that the instruction was delivered with fidelity, you've done the fidelity check, and the paperwork has been completed, and a goal has been established for that learner, then that learner may move to Tier 2. And you may also have some learners who have come to you already on Tier 2. So with those learners, you want to provide intervention for them in a small group, in addition to your daily instruction. So here we have intervention lessons and progress monitoring that are aligned and that also tie back to the universal screener that you gave. They will be focused in numeracy, and they will help build those foundational skills for math. So to access these intervention lessons, if you look back at the folder that we were just in the Intervention Services public folder, the next document is Intervention Lessons. When we open this one, we'll see that this one has several different parts to the intervention lessons. The first one is the intervention manual, and this will be required you'll need this to do the lessons. The student booklets you will need to do the lessons, and then the instructional materials and the teacher masters say if needed, just because you may or may not need something from them. You may have to go print an extra copy, or you may need number cards that you don't have in your classroom or something like that. So those are just kind of on an if needed basis, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. But the first 2 you will definitely need for the intervention lessons. So the intervention manual, each unit has a manual, and they are very large files. So we recommend that you do not print all of them at once, but kind of get used to the format and see what you need. Another option is to download it to your teacher iPad because it's a scripted lesson, and you may be able to just read it from there. So we're going to use first grade as an example just to kind of look at. So when I open that file, it's going to take me to a folder that has all of the intervention units. We're going to begin with Unit 1 to see if there's anything we need to go back with our learners, and we all want to start there so we can identify if there's any gaps. Because of the way that the folder is organized, make sure you are looking at the numbers because it begins with Unit 10. They're kind of a little out of order, so we want to make sure we find Unit 1 here. And then this is the teacher's intervention manual. So if I'm looking at lesson 1, then I can see it has comprised of a warm-up. Then it'll tell you day 1. It tells you about how long it should take. It'll tell you what materials you need. If you don't have number cards, there are some available in the instructional material. Otherwise, you can use ones that you have or ones you make on note cards. Then there is Unit 1 Booster Lesson 1, so it tells you it should take about 8 minutes, and there's a lesson to do together. And the students in their student booklet will have a place for model practice, guided practice, and independent practice. So you'll go through the lesson together. It's even scripted here if you want that. It uses manipulatives. Then you do a guided part together. And then you come to the independent practice. It says independent practice progress monitoring. You're going to want to keep these as just additional data points, and in a future training in a different video, we're going to have how to record your progress monitoring, but you will only be really recording the ones that you do every other week. So this independent daily practice is good information just to have for your learners, but you won't have to put that information into the graph. And then it goes on into Unit 1 Booster Lesson 2. So that goes into the next day's lesson. So all of that we just looked at was one lesson. So it was basically a modeled practice, a guided practice, and an independent practice. So we go back to our document. That was the intervention manual. And let's look at the student booklet for the same lesson. So first grade. Again, we will want to make sure we click on the correct unit. So we want Unit 1, Student. This you will print, and you'll print a whole booklet for each learner in your group, in your small group. So here's Unit 1. Here's their modeled practice page. Another modeled practice page. Here's their guided practice and their independent practice. And this is what you could score for them and to say how many out of 12 they got correct as information for them and information for you just to have as well. And then it goes into Booster Lesson 2, so you'll know that's another day's instruction. The instructional materials, these, if you want to print them, these are used throughout all of the units. So you really only need to print one set of these to use with your lessons. But these have things like fact cards, hundreds charts, number cards, number lines. So for example, the number cards look like this. So you may already have something in your classroom that looks similar or something that you could already use. You don't have to print those if you have something that you can use. But those are available in case you need them, and some of them are a little different. Like you may not have this these specific types of cards with the pictorial representation, so you may want to print those. But the read first is the directions on how to print stuff. So you may want to check that out if you're going to print a specific type of card. So those are instructional materials that you can use if needed, or you can use number lines, hundreds charts, things like that you have in your classroom already. Then the teacher masters if needed. If needed, these pages will be listed in the materials section for specific lessons. If you're looking through a lesson and it says to go to the teacher masters, then you will find it here. Sometimes you can just demonstrate it on your iPad, or sometimes they repeat a page that's already printed in the student booklet. So that's why we're suggesting don't just go print the whole teacher's masters. Be conscientious and look and see if it's really something you need or if it's going to be a duplicate copy of something. So if we're looking at first grade, teacher masters for Unit 1. There's the modeled practice again. There's the guided practice again, and all of these were already in their student booklet, so these would need to be printed. Here's independent practice, and then it looks like similar for lesson 2. So just be aware that those are there, but you most likely won't need those. Okay, and these Intervention lessons will tell you how long they're supposed to take. Of course, it depends on your learners, so you don't have to do just one a day. If you finish and you have time to do 2 lessons in a day, that's fine. But remember to look back at your administrative guidelines to look at how often you're supposed to be working with Tier 2 learners. And it's a minimum of 60 additional minutes each week in addition to your classroom instruction. And then you're also going to be progress monitoring them every 2 weeks. And those we haven't talked about yet. The independent practice that they do daily or every time they meet with you for a lesson is just an additional data point, but it's not our actual progress monitoring. We will go over the progress monitoring probes in the next training video. So this is just the intervention lessons, and you will use these with your Tier 2 learners. You will also use these with your Tier 3 learners, but with a smaller group and an additional amount of time. And that's it for intervention lessons, so let us know if you have any questions.